Well, hello, everybody, and welcome to a special edition of the Ultimate Wellness Group Transformation Tuesday. Today is Saturday, of course. This was supposed to be a special presentation, a private presentation, but a few of us made up our mind that we were going to make it public. So for those of you who may be viewing this, you will see some of the interworkings of how we do things in the Nation of Islam. And so I just wanted to preface it. And we are going to start in prayer. Prayer. O Allah, surely I am being turned, striving to be upright to him who originated the heavens and earth, and I'm not from among polytheists. My prayer, my sacrifices, my life and my death are all for Allah, the Lord of the worlds. No associate has he. This I am commanded, and I am of those who submit. O Allah, thou art the King. There is no God but thee. Thou art my Lord, and I am thy servant. I have been greatly unjust to myself, and I confess my faults. So please grant to me protection against all of my faults, because none can grant protection against faults like thee. And please turn me towards decent morals, because none can turn towards decent morals except thee. And turn me away from the evil and indecent morals, because none can turn away from me the evil and indecent morals except thee. O Allah, make Muhammad successful, and make the true and faithful followers of Muhammad successful as thou did make the true and faithful followers of Abraham successful. O Allah, bless Muhammad, and bless the true and faithful followers of Muhammad, as thou did bless the true and faithful followers of Abraham, for surely thou art praised and magnified. We humbly submit to prayer in the name of our exalted Christ, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. Amen. Anything you want to say before we get started, brother? Wayne?
Oh, no, sir. Ready to rock and roll, bro.
Okay. Well, first of all, thank you, brother, for setting all this up. Thank you for your diligence and making it known. And we're going to get started. In the name of Allah, the beneficent, the merciful, I bear witness there is no God but Allah, and I bear witness that Muhammad is his messenger. I further bear witness that God came in the person of Master Fard Muhammad, which is the foundation of this show. You can see it behind me, or you can see the real book, How to Eat to Live by the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. And at the top, it says, from God in person, Master Fard Muhammad. We believe that man came in the person of God and taught one from among us who has given us a body of knowledge. And today we will be talking about that body of knowledge in the book, How to Eat to Live, books 1 and book 2. And of course, neither of them have left us alone. They left us in this time, a friend, a guidance, in this dark time. I'm speaking of the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, and their names I greet you in the words of peace of Assalamu alaikum. For those of you who may be listening and this is your first time hearing that type of greeting, I'm asking for God to guide me, to use me as a vessel for your benefit, and to remove my ego and my arrogance so that I may be that clean vessel for your benefit and learning something today, some information that you can use to improve your life. So let's get started. I would like to begin first by saying I don't have any desire to try to force what I believe on anybody else, but I'm showing the book again because it says at the top, from God in person, Master Fard Muhammad. That's what I believe. And so I'm starting there because I think it's important to mention a few things, and then we will have to use our minds to evaluate what we believe. If you're a Christian, if you're a Jew, if you believe in Jah, or you call God something else, that's fine. I'm not trying to change that. But whatever you believe today, with the information that you get, evaluate whether or not you believe that if you got information from God himself, when it comes to your health, would you put that information superior to anything and everything that you ever received afterwards? And would that information be able to justify or make you throw away what you learned before you were exposed to that book? Okay, so I wanted to start there because I think it's important. And so I would like to read a little something from the Quran and the Bible to put things in context of what Brother Dr. Keeley believes. Okay, so let's start with Surah 3, verse 48. This is from the Holy Quran. And for those who may not have heard that before or don't know what a Quran is, surah just means chapter. And then we say ayat, and that means the verse. Okay, so here's Surah 3, ayat 48. And make him a messenger to the children of Israel, saying, I have come to you with a sign from your Lord that I determined for you out of dust, the form of a bird. Then I breathe into it, and it becomes a bird with Allah's permission. And I heal the blind and the leprous, and bring the dead to life with Allah's permission. And I inform you of what you eat and what you should store in your houses. Surely there is a sign in this for you if you are believers. There are some in the Muslim world that would say that that's talking about Prophet Muhammad. And those of us in the Nation of Islam do not agree. We believe that that is speaking directly of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, and we believe that we can prove that in no limited time. It's not what today is for. Today is just to mention it. What you believe, of course, has to be put in context for yourself. But here's another verse that we believe is talking about the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. This is John 10, 7 through 12. Then said Jesus unto them again, Verily, verily, I say unto you, I am the door of the sheep. All that ever came before me are thieves and robbers, but the sheep did not hear them. I am the door. By me, if any man enter in, he shall be saved, and shall go in and out and find pasture. The thief cometh not but for to steal, and to kill, and to destroy. I am come that they might have life, and that they might have it more abundantly. I am the good shepherd. The good shepherd giveth his life for the sheep. But he that is a hireling and not the shepherd, whose own the sheep are not, seeth the wolf coming, and leaveth the sheep and fleeth, and the wolf catcheth them and scattereth the sheep. So again, brothers and sisters, I'm not here to tell you what to believe. I'm here to use those scriptures to put in context who I believe the Honorable Elijah Muhammad is and who he met with. Okay. And I wanted to start there because if we are going to have a conversation in all honesty about how to take care of yourself in a pandemic, whether or not you should or should not take a vaccine, and what is the information that you should use to take care of yourself when it comes to health, then we have to put things in the proper context. And I pray that you understand I just did. So let me read this from How to Eat to Live, and then we're going to move on to the next section. Okay. Here is book 1, page 58. This is the statement that the Honorable Elijah Muhammad makes. First paragraph. Nearly all of my followers and I are already in heaven. And he puts in parentheses, so this is how he describes what heaven is. A peace of mind and contentment for the necessities of life, such as food, clothing, shelter, and without the enemy of fear and grief. And with the protection of Almighty God, Allah, what more do we want? A couple paragraphs down, he says, but still within ourselves, we are happy because this evil world does not attract us anymore. We do not desire this kind of life that the wicked live. Our thoughts or minds feast upon the spirit of goodness. Therefore, the spirit of evil cannot find a place among us to dwell. So with that explanation of heaven, I believe that in my experience in being a physician for 26 years, that's what the book How to Eat to Live did for me in my practice of medicine. I was finished with medicine in approximately 2003, 2004. I had a lot of friends making a lot of money in real estate, and I was going to leave medicine because I wasn't fulfilled in it anymore, and I was going to do real estate until I read this book, and it gave me the fulfillment back. I was able to give people information, give them programs, and watch them walk out of medical problems. And I did not have that capacity prior with what I had learned in all those years in school. With all the mentors that I had that were physicians, I didn't have that same ability. And so it gave me something back that I was looking for my whole life, right? As I was aspiring to be a physician. And so that is me putting things in context so that you know that as you sit here and you listen to me, I would say this as just as part of the introduction, that if you believe in Master Fard Muhammad and you believe in the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, if there's anybody listening that doesn't, then that's okay. Listen, use your mind, contemplate what I'm saying. But for those who believe that Master Fard Muhammad came and that he taught the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, and the Honorable Elijah Muhammad as a master teacher has taught the minister 30, 40, sometimes 30, 40 plus years in advance, and the minister walks into those teachings and the understanding of those teachings, then we're talking about some superior knowledge. And my question is, if you believe that, then what medical information would you ever want that could be superior than the master of the universe? It's just a question. And we'll get to that in just a minute, okay? I want to speak just quickly, somewhat of a warning, and maybe for those who need it, maybe just information for you to take in consideration. But within the last few days, I have spoken to 3 friends of mine. One, an ER physician from New York, another, an ER physician from Chicago, and another sister who is an ICU nurse, and she travels around the country to different hospitals. And this is what each one of them said, and none of them talked to each other before they talked to me. They said that in their hospitals, in the facilities which they work, right now, within the last probably month or two, they are seeing more people that have gotten the vaccine and having troubles with the vaccine than they are seeing people that have the actual infection. I'm not adding anything or taking anything away from what they said, but I'm saying that because we in the Nation of Islam were given, and I would say all people were given, some information by Minister Louis Farrakhan on July 4th, 2020. The name of that program was The Criterion. That presentation was given by the minister. He told us not to take their vaccines. And here we are just a few months later, less than a year later, and we are seeing multiple medical problems. We are seeing multiple issues. We are seeing the VAERS site. If you all have not heard of that, it's VAERS. Put that in your search engine and check that out. Vaccine Adverse Event Reporting System. VAERS for short, VAERS. Put it in there, just do a search. You can go and you can look at the type of problems that people are having with these vaccines. Over the last few weeks, we've heard J&J and all these problems with blood clots. There are many people having blood clot problems with the Pfizer and the Moderna vaccine. So let's not get confused and point at J&J as if they're the only ones that have a vaccine that's causing major problems. And I would also add, because I've heard some people say that Johnson & Johnson has a serious problem with being moral and correct in their dealing with people over the years and their drugs and what they've given to the community or to the world. I would say if you think Johnson & Johnson is any different than Pfizer, you are highly misunderstood and you should do some more research, because Pfizer has probably been worse from my research than Johnson & Johnson has ever been. And Moderna is not even a pharmaceutical company. So we'll see what comes out with theirs. But the point that I'm getting to is that the VAERS reporting system has, the last I checked, it was 92,000 patient filled out forms that had injuries from these vaccines. And so we have to be very careful with getting information from a perspective of propaganda versus getting information from a perspective of information so that you can make a good decision. So these 2 ER physicians and this ICU nurse are not people that I just started working. I've been working with these people for years, have known them for 10 plus years, and have grown to understand that when they give information, it is based in the truth. They don't lie. I haven't noticed or seen them just fluff information just to try to prove a point. No, what they are doing is reporting what they're seeing in their hospitals. And that's not the type of information that average people are getting. The physicians in these hospitals all around the country are not willing to point to the vaccine being responsible for a lot of what they're seeing, nor are these government institutions that you think you can trust, the CDC, the NIH, the government of the United States. These organizations are not, I should say, do not have your best interests at the forefront of their mind. And so if that type of information is an eye opener, that these physicians are seeing more people that are struggling and having major problems with the vaccines versus actually seeing people with the infection, that's pretty necessary information, I would say, as well as the nurse that said that. And the words that both of those doctors used with me was strange, peculiar, as far as the type of things that they're seeing from people taking the vaccine. So yeah, some people are having the common symptoms, muscle aches, joint problems, fever, headache, things of that nature. But some people are having things that they don't even know how to describe yet. So I said all that to say, be very careful. If you plan on taking this vaccine, you should seriously do your research. And if you were to ask me what I think, do not take the vaccine. You do not want to put yourself into the pot of being experimented on and being a live phase trial. And then you wind up being one of the people that die so that they can report in the book that you died for whatever reason as a problem with this vaccine. And then they'll take it and they'll go back in the lab and do whatever they do and then bring it back out and say it's fixed. No, we should stay out of those type of experimentations. And if you don't know enough about them, get the book Medical Apartheid by Harriet Washington and read about what Black people have been through, brown and indigenous people have been through in this country and around the world in the name of medical experiments. Not a good idea. All right. So I'm going to move on to what is How to Eat to Live about. And if I was to sum up what How to Eat to Live is in a statement, I would say that the Honorable Elijah Muhammad teaches us to pick the best of foods. So learn, research, study what are the best of foods. And then when you start working on having longer periods of time in between when you eat, that is going to improve the body. Okay, so he talks about never eating as an adult, never eating over one meal a day. And some of you will see this in online sites, so you'll see it on social media. Sometimes nowadays they're using OMAD, the letters OMAD as a moniker for one meal a day. That came from our man, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. And I'm going to read something in and show us a few pictures so we can discuss it in detail. And let me say that once I'm going to do the presentation, and if there are any questions, I'll ask those at the end, but I want to get through the presentation first, if you all don't mind. So the Honorable Elijah Muhammad on book 1 again, we're in page 53, gives us, in my opinion, what is the basis, I would say, basic idea of this book. On page 53, second paragraph, How to Eat to Live. Allah God said to me in the person of Master Fard Muhammad, to whom praise is due forever, that we who believe in him as our God and Savior should eat but one meal a day, once every 24 hours. Eat nothing between meals, not even candy, fruit, or anything which would start the stomach digestive processes. In this way, our eating of the proper foods and drinks at the proper time would extend our life to 140 years. Have any of you ever heard anybody tell you anything like that? I know I haven't. This would protect us from sickness. He said if we would start our infants eating one meal a day as soon as they are able to partake of solid foods, it would enable them to live to an age of 240 years. Have you heard anything like that before? I doubt it. I then asked him, how about eating once every 48 hours? He said to me, you will be ill only one day out of 4 or 5 years. I asked him, what was the cure for that one day of illness? He said, fast 3 days and you will be all right. I asked him, what about eating one meal every 3 days? He said, you will never be sick if you eat once every 72 hours. This is about 2 meals every 6 days, which would extend our lives to a span of 1,000 years. For there is no poison from the previous meal 3 days ago, which has enough power to do you any harm. The fast destroys the accumulation of food poison. So I'm sure there's some things there that we need to dally into, right? The first I would ask, for those who know who the Honorable Elijah Muhammad is, and we know how he has given us information that has stood the test of time, or we have seen him say things and we are watching them come true. And then if we know who the minister is in comparison, Minister Farrakhan I'm speaking of, if we know who he is in comparison to the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, then we know that the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan is being directed by a man. So this is some pretty powerful information. And my question to everybody, and I'm talking now to those who believe in Master Farrakhan Muhammad and the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, did he know that pestilence was a potential future of ours? And I would say my answer would be absolutely, because he taught us about the story of Moses in the Bible and the stories of Moses in the Quran, right? And we know about those plagues that came down on Egypt at that time because of the treatment of Jehovah on the slaves and the people of that time. So do we believe that the Honorable Elijah Muhammad has given us a teaching, giving us something that could help us make it through this time? If he told us we wouldn't be sick every 4 to 5 years, you eat one meal every 3 days, you'll never be sick. I mean, I believe that that is information that should make us more secure as we go through this time. And then if there's anybody that doesn't believe, you believe something else or you believe in somebody else, that's fine. But I would just ask you, if you believe in the Bible, there's a man in the Bible that was 969. So if that statement that you can eat one meal every 3 days and you will live 1,000 years, if that sounds inconceivable, well, do you believe the Bible when it says that Methuselah lived to 969? And there were other people that lived to 950 and 900. Is that possible, or is that something different? And please don't tell me that there was a different calendar then. No, that was the same calendar, because the day is based on the earth rotating around the sun. And that has been happening for trillions of years, that this earth has been in orbit. So you can't say that Methuselah lived 969 on some other calendar. No, on this calendar. But that's how grand the information that the Honorable Elijah Muhammad is giving us. He's giving us information that is superior than anything you've ever heard. It might take you a little time to understand it, but that's good. That's the challenge, right? So I want to share something about these statements. One meal every other day. I'm sorry, 1 meal a day, 1 meal every other day, and 1 meal every 3 days. Let's put this into context so that we could maybe assess what this man is saying. First, I will say this. There have been plenty studies in America and abroad that say that if you fast 3 days, you will remake all of your blood cells, your white blood cells, your red blood cells, and your plasma. Okay, that's a pretty amazing statement that has just come out within a few years. I believe those studies came out in the late 2000 teens, so 2015, 12, 15, 17, somewhere around in there. And the Honorable Elijah Muhammad has been saying that since the 30s. But here's a little something for you to look at as you consider what I'm talking about. In that 4 to 8 hours of fasting, your blood sugar drops and your insulin levels drop. And this is not exact. I want to give you a little more information. If you were to eat a steak that could potentially take 13, 14, 15 hours to digest versus eating something like some fruit, which may take a couple of hours to digest, then this has a range. That's all I mean. It may be 4 hours or it may be longer, depending on the food that you eat. And so as we go through these numbers that I'm about to talk about over the next couple of minutes, let's just put those into proper context, because everything on here is not detailed to the specific foods, but specific foods will have a change. It will alter this to some degree. Not major, but it will alter it. So you see there, as I said, 48. And then you see at 12 hours, food has been burned. That's the one that changes, because if you have a vegetarian meal, that will usually be digested within 4 to 6 hours. But if you have a meal where you're eating lamb or beef or chicken or turkey, that's going to take much more time to digest. So that would change to potentially 16 hours, potentially 18 hours on that one alone. Okay. Now it says, you see what's next. Healing process begins. What healing process? The process of taking the nutrients from the food that you just digested and putting it where it needs to be. Very similar to if you had a problem at your house. Somebody comes in to do some plumbing repair or some sheetrock repair or repair to your steps or your carpet. You would expect them to come in your house with some supplies. You're fixing my carpet, I expect to see some carpet supplies. You're coming in to fix plumbing, I expect to see some glue and maybe a few wrenches and some pipe, some PVC, PEX, something, right? And so that is what we're getting from our food, the actual materials that go into the body and start the process of looking for what needs to be fixed and start that process. So that's what the healing process begins. HGH, that's human growth hormone. In children, that represents growth, right? You look at your child, and sometimes people put lines on the wall and you see how they grow from year to year. That's because of human growth hormone. In adults, after we finish growing, that represents healing. It represents the body looking at tissues and what needs to be repaired in that tissue, okay? Glucagon is released. What is glucagon? That's a substance that allows us to store and or use sugar that we have stored, okay? Digestive system begins resting. Once that food is finished digesting and we go on a fast, your GI system shuts down. There's no more work that's happening. And so on that note, brothers and sisters, if you are fasting, do not expect to have a bowel movement. Those things are not in congruence. Now, if you have a very extended fast, you go 10, 20 or plus days, then yes, eventually you will eliminate something because the body is continuing to work. But usually on a 2 or 3 day fast, you should not expect to have any elimination from a defecation perspective because that system has shut down and it's just resting. Okay. So here we see at 14 hours, HGH keeps increasing. Fat burning begins, right? You're starting to break down fat to use it as fuel. And in that state, the body is in a much better mental acuity, and the body is also in a better healing state when it's in that place, okay? Fat burning increases, you see there at 16 hours. HGA increases at 18 hours. Autophagy begins between 18 to 20 hours. What is autophagy begins? That's just a big word that means that we start taking things in our environment, the body, and using what we can and throwing away. So an efficient, economic, environmental cleaning process is what's happening in the body. Okay. We're going to keep anything that we can use to build and clean and fix. And those things that are not necessary anymore are getting rid of. And you see there on 18 to 20 to 36 hours, autophagy increases by 300%. And you also see there at 18 to 20 hours, you see ketones are released. The body is in its utmost ability to heal when ketones are being produced. What is a ketone? A ketone is a sugar that's made by the liver that helps fuel the muscles, fuel the brain when sugar is not available. Our daily fuel source for the brain and muscles is sugar. But when we are fasting, the body doesn't have sugar available. The body doesn't have stores of it available anymore because we've used it. And now you're making ketones. Takes the mental acuity to a higher level. They have done studies where they do these brain scans with certain dyes so they can see what's happening. And the brain is on a whole different level of functioning, a whole different level of power, a whole different level of problem solving when we have that acuity with those ketones. And so the body is doing a lot of healing, right? 36 hours. You see there at 48 hours, cellular regeneration starts, inflammation goes down. And then you see at 72 hours, autophagy peaks. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad was giving us information that is so highly scientific that many scientists are just starting to understand what he started teaching us back in the 30s. So we can put things in context, and it's pretty amazing. I want to talk about something real quickly while we were talking about that regeneration versus repair, right? Because many of you that are listening today have had a cut, a scrape, a scar, an injury on your body, and you see sometimes a scar, you can see it for the rest of your life. Like I have a burn from an iron on my left arm, the scar is still there. But I scratched myself doing some work around the house a few days ago, and I don't even notice where it scratched myself. Don't even see it anymore, okay? And so when you look at this right here, you see repair versus regeneration. We're not going to go into all of this. I just want you all to know that if you're eating every day, your body repairs and has the ability to repair well. When you eat one meal every other day or more, or if you fast on a regular basis, you are taking your body out of repair phase into regeneration phase. And so I'm just going to concentrate on one point right here, and then we're going to move on because I want to make sure I don't bore you all, okay? I'm just going to, right here, this section, it says, in repair, you form scar tissue. And in regeneration, does not form scar tissue. What is the difference? Repair is like coming in and doing some patchwork like you have in your house. You know, if somebody were to come in your house and they say, you know what, that wall right there is leaning, those pipes behind there aren't doing very well, they might bust soon. That whole part of the house is kind of weak. You might need some structural work there. And then what they do is just put some wallpaper over it and say, okay, you know, we repaired it. It's okay for right now. It'll last for maybe another year or so. But in order to go in there and fix that wall and fix those pipes and make things so that they work properly, totally different reality, right? And so when we fast, when we have those long periods of time in between eating, when we have ketones and autophagy happening, we are getting regeneration. The body is not just repaired and able to somewhat function. It is able to function at the capability that it had originally. Last section may restore some of the original structures of the damaged tissue, but may also result in structure abnormalities that impair organ function or any aspect of the body and how it works. That function may be decreased. Some of you may have played sports. Some of you may have done stuff in your life and you injure something and you never could get back to that total capacity what you had before you injured yourself. But if we knew this teaching, we would be capable of healing the damage with no permanent damage remaining, meaning you gain the same function you had before the injury. Pretty amazing information that the Honorable Elijah Muhammad started giving us 80 plus years ago. Praise be to Allah. Thank you, Brother Darrell and GAK Kimberly. Okay, so one meal a day. And I want to make a quick clarification because there are some people out here that are saying things that I think tends to put an oppressive reality on our teaching of one meal a day, or I should say the teaching of how to eat to live. We don't need anything to ever oppress God's information. That's why we say in Islam that there's no compulsion in you. I'm not supposed to force you to do anything. I'm supposed to present something to you on a plate and make it clear. And then you have the right to discern and then make a decision. Okay. But here's a statement that I want us to look at because this is what the Honorable Elijah Muhammad says. And he's been teaching, like, as I said, since the 1930s. And these scientists of the world today are just starting to understand what he said, what he meant. And in some ways, they still don't understand. But here's what the Honorable Elijah Muhammad says about eating one meal a day. Get used to eating one meal a day. Then when your appetite is not so strong for that next meal, by eating once every 24 hours, start eating every 48 hours. Never start 72 hours regularly until you are able to do so. And so what am I trying to clarify? The statement that I hear a lot of people say that we master 1 meal a day and then we go to 1 meal every other day. He never used the word master. And sometimes when we're talking to people and we say you have to master 1 meal a day before you go to 1 meal every other day, that can make them a little uncomfortable, a little insecure, because the word master has a lot to it. We do not have to master 1 meal a day. We have to get used to doing 1 meal a day. And if you see that you can go further, if you see, man, I'm eating every day, but some days I'm not hungry, well, go ahead and push yourself a little more. And what is the reason? What I just finished saying, regeneration versus repair. It is such a beautiful thing. I have gone from 1 meal a day to 1 meal every other day. I started 2 weeks before Ramadan 2015. It is tough. It is an uphill climb. But the injuries that I had when I was younger playing sports, I don't even feel most of them anymore. My mental acuity on the days that I'm not eating, I mean, amazing. My energy level is higher. My workouts, so I eat on odd days, and even days I don't eat. I do my workouts on even days. Much more energy, much more stamina than I had when I was eating 5 meals a day. When I first got turned on to How to Eat to Live, I believe in what I believe in, and I try to give to people that trust me what I believe in. I was eating 5 meals a day at that time. I would come home in the morning after my workouts, and a lot of times I'd have to drink juice or eat something to keep myself from passing out because my sugar levels were dropping. When you eat 5 meals a day, your body doesn't store a lot of sugar. Why? Because you're giving it so much, it doesn't need to store anything. And so when I would do my workouts, which are pretty rigorous, I would almost pass out every morning. So I would have to drink something. I considered that my first meal of the day, 5, 6 in the morning. And then I would periodically eat throughout the day. But now, 1 meal a day of the good foods, and I can go out and work out sometimes in the middle of the day for 2 hours. As long as I have some hydration, drinking some water, that's good. I don't have any problems. Okay. So I pray that that made sense. And if not, I pray that you all will ask me some questions so I can answer at the end. And I just want to point this out briefly. That's not what I wanted. I want to show this here for those who may not understand how we can regenerate with longer times in between meals. Here's the reason right here. So I talked a few minutes ago about doing a 3-day fast and renewing all of your blood cells. Well, this is the reason right here. We have what we call stem cells in the body. And a stem cell is an undifferentiated cell, a brand new, greatly capable cell of being able to do anything in the body that the body dictates it to do. It doesn't do what it wants to do. It is told what to do. So this is a beautiful system that Allah has given us. So if you are the type of person that has multiple medical problems, you know, some people present themselves to me, should I say, and they say, you know, doc, I have high blood pressure. I have, a heart problem. My kidneys are going bad. I have diabetes. You know, I have arthritis pretty bad. My stomach doesn't feel well. I don't feel like I'm digesting my food. They say, which problem do you think we should deal with first? I can't tell you that. I'm not Allah, but he made these bodies with the ability already to be able to make that determination. So if we just do the right things, the body knows what to prioritize and what to put on the second or the third or the fourth tier, right? So this is what we call a stem cell again, and it is produced when we are in that state of ketones and autophagy. In autophagy, when we're taking what we can use and getting rid of the waste, at that same time, we're making stem cells. They come from either the bones, which is where we make our blood, and sometimes they can come from other tissues of the body. But a stem cell is a brand new cell. A stem cell is what they get out of babies. When a mother has her baby and they want to keep the placenta and keep the umbilical cord, it's because they're extracting stem cells from that. So you can go and you can pay a physician or you can pay a corporation $5, $6, $7, $8, $10,000 to get a few stem cells to get extracted into your body. Or you could just follow some guidance from the man of God and go on a fast every once in a while. He said a minimum 2 or 3 times a month. And at the end of the year, you won't have enough sickness in your body to be sick 1 hour. That's because you are doing so much to improve, so much to put these new cells in there. So those old cells and those ones that's been injured have been removed, and a new cell has been there to take the place of that old cell. And a stem cell can be differentiated based on the information that it is given. It can be a nerve cell, a stomach cell, a liver cell, a kidney cell, a brain cell, a muscle cell, a bone cell. It has the ability to be whatever in your body is prioritized. And if you keep eating correctly and you keep fasting, and then maybe sometimes you go a little longer and you say, you know what, I think in June, since we just finished Ramadan, I think maybe in June I'll do a 10-day fast. How much can you do in a 10-day fast if in a 3-day fast you can make all new blood cells? Maybe heal some of those medical problems, maybe solve some of those medical problems, but it takes some work. Okay, so I'm just posing a few ideas for us to think about. But that stem cell, the idea of a stem cell is supremely important, because when you're on your fast, you can say to yourself, I haven't had anything to eat. Been about 30 hours, been about 26 hours, been about 24 hours. Your body is in a state of supreme healing. And as long as you don't do what Honorable Elijah Muhammad said in that first section that I read, don't put anything in the body to start the digestive process, then that will maintain itself until you eat again. I pray that that helps. I pray that that information makes us feel a little, pleasant. Why? Because we have some information that's superior than what we're getting from these doctors. And again, if you are listening to me and this information is impressive, next time you're at your doctor's office, ask them, do you know anything about fasting? Do you know anything about autophagy? Do you know anything about ketones? Tell me, how can I get my body in that way? You might get a look like that because a lot of them don't know. Okay. It was very important for us to know. Now, after saying all of that, and after laying the base that I said that this teaching is coming from God, I believe that 100%. I believe that because this book gave me the ability to help many, many more people in a much better way than I was able to do with what I learned in medical school. And that's the importance of sharing this information, right? I wanted to talk a couple of things about once we get this type of information. This is book 1, page 18. God does not punish us for the crime of disobedience to his laws when we are ignorant of his laws. But after knowledge of his laws, he is justified in punishing us by setting the full penalty according to the disobedience. And so that statement, I'm specifically talking to those who believe in Master Prophet Muhammad and have had How to Eat to Live for many, many years. Those of you who have been practicing it and you're seeing all of these wonderful things and you're looking at your face in the mirror and comparing yourself to people that are your same age, went to high school with you, some of your own family members, and you're watching them deteriorate and get older and looking sick, and you don't. You have been practicing this high science, and you really didn't even know all of those particulars, right? But now that you know these particulars, I think it will influence us and inspire us to get into this book a little more, maybe do a little more fasting, because we all, I promise, this statement is 1000% true. I don't care what your religion is. I've had Muslims, Buddhists, Seventh-day Adventists, Jehovah's Witness, plenty Christians that were on their deathbed, and to a person in all of those different religions, and we're talking about multiple people over the years, when it was time and they knew they weren't going to make it, they were not comfortable because they had no guarantee of what's going to happen on the other side of what they had fear of, and that is death. And so I don't care how great your relationship is with God. And I'm not talking from any superior place. I'm talking in a place of extreme humility in watching people that were Jehovah's Witness or Seventh-day Adventists and didn't believe in blood transfusions. A blood transfusion could have kept that person here for a few more weeks, but they decided to stick with what they believe. And when they checked up out of here, I had a lot of respect for that. But the point that I'm getting to is that we don't have any understanding of anything other than this life that we have. And if you get to the point where you are on your table or your bed and it's close to that time when you're going to check up out of here, nobody wants to go. Everybody wants to be here a little longer for whatever the reason is. Got something you got to do, just not ready to go, have a goal, have family you don't want to leave, whatever the reason is. It's worth doing the work now so that we won't wind up there, because that's not a good place to be. Believe me. Okay, so I wanted to mention this. Now that we are at this point, I believe that even if you don't believe what I am saying, you can tell that I believe it, right? And so here is a statement that the Honorable Elijah Muhammad makes about us trusting what he is saying. I apologize for the delay. I'm trying to find it, y'all. So here's the first one, page 19. And this is what I was saying earlier about having this type of information and then going back and trusting a doctor that was trained in this medical industry. Fasting is a greater cure of our ills, both mental and physical, than all the drugs of the earth combined into one bottle or a billion bottles. And most of us have had family members that were sick, and when they died, they were still taking those same medications that they had been taking 30, 40, 50 plus years sometimes. Allah, God, in the person of Master Fard Muhammad has taught me that fasting with the right kind of food is the cure of our ills. He said to me that there is no cure in drugs and medicine, and this the world is now learning. We can take medicine all of our lives until it kills us, yet we are still ailing with the same old diseases. So, what I just finished showing you all, just a little bit of information about what happens when we're fasting. That's just the scientific information that shows that we're starting to catch up with this information, because these books are a compilation of information that was written over many, many, many years, starting in the 30s. And the scientific world was not able to explain the things that the Honorable Elijah Muhammad said since the 30s, but they've been researching it ever since. Okay. So a couple of things I want to mention about our ability to practice this teaching. This is not a dictate. I'm giving information hoping to inspire people, as I said earlier, but here are a couple of Quranic verses, since we are in Ramadan, that we have read and that I think puts things in the context of how we should be approaching this. If you all don't mind me stepping outside of the medical view for a minute and going into the spiritual realm, which are all tied together. But here's something I think is amazing. Surah 22, verse 37, ayat 37. Not their flesh nor their blood reaches Allah, but to him is acceptable observance of duty on your part. Thus he made them subservient to you, and you may magnify Allah for guiding you aright and get good news to those who do good to others. And then on 24, Surah 24, 53, which we read yesterday, right? He says, and they swear by Allah with their strongest oaths, that if thou command them, they would certainly go forth. Say, swear not. Reasonable obedience is desired. Surely Allah is aware of what you do. So why did I bring that up? Because, brothers and sisters, I don't want us to sit and look at me like I'm some perfect practitioner of how to eat to live. No, I'm a striving practitioner. If you're hearing this for the first time or you're hearing this for the multiple of times, let's use this information and get ourselves back on track to some degree, because we're living in a time that is proving that we have to spend more time on our health. There's some of us that are listening to me right now that have done things over the last however many years that you know you should have done different. You know you should be drinking more water. You know you should be eating better food. You know you should get up off of that couch or that chair and do more exercise. You know you should be resting more, getting some sleep. And when I say rest, I'm talking about sleep and fasting. And so let's not beat ourselves up, right? In the Nation of Islam, we start our prayers in this manner. In the name of Allah, the beneficent, the merciful. Well, if we're asking the supreme being on the planet, who is beneficent and merciful, to help us, in every day we're talking about his two greatest qualities, right? Beneficence, meaning gifts. Mercy, undue allowances, I would say, to put it in a different word. And so we can be that to ourselves. Don't beat yourself up. Don't be your worst critic to a point where it's demeaning to your own being. Have some beneficence, have some mercy, be kind and be gentle with yourself. It doesn't make a difference the mistakes that you've made or whatever life has done and caused and not allowed you the energy to spend on your health. But after today, I pray that this information helps inspire you to get back to doing some of those things that you know you should be doing. Do not try to take the information today, as the Honorable Elijah Muhammad says, and says, oh, wow, Dr. Keeley was talking about such. I'm going to start eating one meal every 3 days. And you're eating 3 meals now? No, that's not the way. Get the book, How to Eat to Live. Store.finalcall.com. Store.finalcall.com. And read the book. And take your time and make adjustments, small and sure. And so that way it will maintain itself. Because if you make a lot of changes and then you fall back, it's not much success. In my personal experience, that causes more problems than being sick and maintaining it. When you do good and then you fall back in back habits, the body seems to deteriorate much quicker than it was originally. So take your time, be kind, but be honest in your effort towards your changes, because we're not living in a time where we should be forsaking our health. Okay. I want to speak real quickly on what the Honorable Elijah Muhammad says in book 2 on page 141 real quickly. He says this, third paragraph, I'm sorry. The pure milk fat that we call butter should not be mixed with vegetable fats. It should be eaten without mixing it, like grandmother and grandfather ate it. Substitute foods are destroying a great percentage of good health. Brothers and sisters, I had a grandmother that lived to 110. When she was in her 90s, I had just started getting into How to Eat to Live. I told my family that if they would listen to me, there's no question in my mind she could live to 150. Easy. Didn't happen. She died at 110. But I talked to my grandmother. I used to record her so she could give me some wisdom and talk about what things were like when she was a little girl, such. And she told me one day that the first time she ever shopped in a grocery store, she was 49 years young. Now that sounds strange to us because most of us have shopped in a grocery store all of our lives. I know I have gone to the grocery store with my mom when we were young, ride in the cart. And then when you get bigger, you push in the cart. So for her to have gone almost half of her life without eating substitute foods, boxed foods, packaged foods, processed foods, she had a very good countenance. She had a very good, firm foundation because she grew up in a household where her mother had a garden in the backyard. You know, she grew up in Mississippi. My grandma was born in 1904. So we didn't have any help from white folks. We were doing things on our own. Black people one person has a garden, they're growing this and that and this and that. Another person has something else. Maybe they had the chickens. These people had the pig and that person had the cow, and they would barter with each other and share food. And I know I introduced pig. We shouldn't be eating that. But my point is that she was. My grandmother lived to 110, overweight all of my life. My grandmother lived to 110, eating pork all of her life. So the reality is that we can have long life, we can have longevity, but we have to pay attention to what information is and where we're getting it from. Because if we mix things up with the truth, it's not going to have a good outcome. So let me just read something real quick, a couple of things, and then we'll move on to the next subject, okay? This is what the Honorable Elijah Muhammad says in Book 1 on page 48, first paragraph. We must not be confused, I repeat, with the various advice offered to us from modern day food and medical scientists. If you take their advice and try to eat all of the different kinds of food cooked in their many different ways at all different times of the day, and there are many different suggestions on how much you should eat, you will most certainly die. So that's one statement. And then the other one is page 36, first paragraph. Since being given knowledge by the all-wise one in the person of Master Fard Muhammad on how to eat to live, we should not confuse ourselves by studying the vice of all the people, doctors and quacks of the world, on what kind of medicine, vegetables, meats, herbs, and fruits we should eat. If we keep getting advice on the above after getting the correct advice, we will never enjoy good health. All will be confusion. So I brought that up because people have a tendency to ask me a lot about this keto diet. And so let's look at it and see what we can come to a conclusion of, okay? So here is a chart, kind of like the typical food chart that this government, the United States government, has given to us through the United States Agriculture Department and the Food and Drug Administration, which has been shown to cause disease and not help cure it. But what can I eat on a keto diet? So let's just go through these real quickly, because this is the common thing right now. This is the big thing that a lot of people are doing. And it's also something that a lot of people are asking me questions about. And so I talked about the keto reality a few minutes ago. Now I'm going to go through this, and then we'll talk about what they are saying and how it is just not based in truth, but it is based in commercialism. On many of occasions in How to Eat to Live, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad tells us that we are living amongst a commercializing people, trying to make money off of every and anything. We know that's a reality. I just came from a funeral today. How many of us have been to a funeral within the last few years? How much it costs to put a person in the ground? How many of us have had a family member have a child? How much does it cost for a child to come into this world? Things that happen naturally. Animals deliver babies every day with no doctor, but yet we go and spend thousands of dollars. So commercializing people, right? Here we go on this keto diet. Let me make this a little bigger so you all can see this well. I pray that that's a little better. So here we go. The fats that they suggest: coconut oil. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad says don't eat that. High fat salad dressings. Most of those are soy based. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad tells us don't eat that. Over here on the right, avocado and berries, low glycemic impact berries. That good information. Nuts and seeds. Nuts you cannot digest. Those of you who don't agree or believe, take your favorite nut today or whenever you're ready, chew them, look in your mouth in the mirror and see what size they are before you swallow them, and then watch your stool over the next few days and you'll see it come out of you the same way it went down. That's proof that you can't digest. If something goes through a digestive system and comes out looking the same that it went in, then that digestive system can't do anything with it. We can eat seeds, sunflower seeds, pumpkin seeds, but nuts, no. And that's a whole conversation within itself on what's the difference between nuts and seeds. High fat dairy, hard cheeses, butter and cream. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad tells us that we can use butter. I just finished reading that, right? And whole milk. But when it comes to hard cheeses, he suggested that we don't eat aged cheese. So we have to stay away from some of those so-called specialty cheeses. Leafy greens. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad warns us against eating leafy greens. It's in book 2. I'll find the page in just a minute. But he told us not to eat the turnip greens, the collard greens, don't eat turnip, but spinach every once in a while. But we're not supposed to eat those type of foods. So here we are in this society where I see people all the time on social media and so-called health sites talking about juicing greens and eating your greens and eating kale. These are foods that we should not eat. And what kind of experiment or paying attention to yourself can you do to prove it to yourself? Just watch your stool. I would suggest anybody that doubts what I'm saying, buy your favorite greens and eat those over the next few days and watch your stool. Every time you get up off the toilet, the stool is going to be green. Why does that happen with kale, spinach, collard greens, mustard greens, turnip greens? But you don't have that happen when you eat okra or Brussels sprouts or avocado or cabbage or asparagus. Now you can overdo anything, but I'm talking about the same amount. Eat approximately the same amount, and you will see foods that he suggests that your body is able to handle. You will not see green stools, but when you eat those green leafy greens that you think are healthy, that he says don't eat, you'll see them in the stool. I think that tells you a lot of information. So no, leafy greens are not good for you. And then meats. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad said it's best for us to be vegetarians. And so this is not a knock on anybody that's eating meat. Just start working yourself off of that meat towards a vegetarian diet. Take your time and do it. Above ground vegetables. So there's a list. I would suggest everybody take your time, go through How to Eat to Live, write down the foods that he puts in here, because as I've studied over the last 18 years, this book, I have noticed that the foods that the Honorable Elijah Muhammad mentions, the ones he lists in this book, are the foods with the greatest nutrition, and they're the easiest for us to digest. Okay. So all of that to say that the keto diet is a trick. It's a commercializing trick, because I just told you all a few minutes ago how to put your body into ketosis. It's not by eating particular foods. It's by long periods in between meals. So work on it, get better, strengthen yourself, and then you'll get to a place where you will be able to eat less food, have more time in between your meals, and you will literally start looking in the mirror and seeing yourself decrease in age, looks like. And again, you'll start comparing yourself to other people, and you'll see a lot of benefits. Okay. Just one more suggestion. Book 2, page 185. If we expect to live for what we eat, we must be sure that what we eat is masticated so perfectly well until the stomach juices, which have no teeth, with its hot acid can digest the food without too much work. Brothers and sisters, if you are drinking with your food and or drinking after your food, you are decreasing the strength of that acid that he just mentioned. You will not digest your food well. You will not absorb your food at the best ability if you're drinking with or after your food. So please make sure you're hydrated and you drink your water. Two different things. Hydration and drinking water is not the same. There are plenty of people out here that use those words interchangeably, but they are not the same. Drinking water and hydration are two separate things. And I will not go into that today because I've talked about that on many occasions unless somebody asked a question. So here's the Honorable Elijah Muhammad's statement on book 2, page 176 about green leafy veggies. But do not eat leaf vegetable, such as collard greens, with which some of us have taken for our diet. Do not eat a lot of green vegetables anyway. Eat the white heads of vegetables, such as cauliflower and white heads of cabbage. Eat that type of food. You can eat the roots of turnips, but do not eat the salad leaves. And so he differentiates about the green leafy foods right there, but he has mentioned in a letter about we can't eat broccoli. He mentions in the book that we can eat asparagus and Brussels sprouts and cabbage. Okay, so let's make sure that we are concentrating on the foods that he suggested, because those foods are the best. Okay, we've been at this about an hour, so I'm getting ready to be quiet and see if you all have any questions. I just want to mention this last thing. Oh, I know what it was. Okay, so for those of you who have seen or have not seen a pH scale before, here is a pH scale. And you see on the left-hand side, it says acidic. On the right-hand side, it says alkaline. And in the middle, it says neutral. Now, I will preface this before I go any further with this right here is not accurate. Blood is not at a pH of 8. That is an inaccuracy of this. But overall, I think this is a pretty good one to have this conversation. There are plenty of people that make comments to me about eating alkaline foods and having an alkaline diet and keeping your body in an alkaline state. That is a misconception based on information that is not completely understood. Now, is it a good thing to eat alkaline foods? Of course it is. Processed foods, meat, and those type of foods are acidic in nature, whereas the foods that the Honorable Elijah Muhammad mentions in How to Eat to Live are alkalinic in nature. When you study them in a laboratory, they have an alkaline nature versus those other foods have an acidic, right? But that's not congruent with the body. That's the food that you put in the body. And I don't care what the food is that you put in the body. You see right here where it says stomach acid at a pH of 1. That's almost as acidic as you can get. I have only studied, I believe, maybe 1, maybe 2 types of acids on the planet Earth that are stronger than our stomach acid. It's pretty strong. Allah made our stomach acid that strong for a very particular reason, because the acid has to work in conjunction with the squeezing and the working of that stomach muscle in order to break that food down, along with the enzymes that we get from our saliva glands, as well as what the liver and the pancreas produce, right? All of that goes together to break down your food. But the point that I'm making is that the stomach is a very acidic environment. Look over here to the right where you see very alkaline things, drain cleaner, ammonia, bleach, right? All of us came up in a household where our parents wanted to make sure when we were little children, we didn't get next to those things because it can kill you very quickly. So get out of the mind state that you want your body alkaline. You do not want your body alkaline. We live right here in neutrality. The body is neutral. I have done what we call arterial sticks on many people. When we do an arterial stick, it gives us a much better indication of what a person's pH is. Your pH is being balanced all day, every day, moment to moment to moment by the lungs, by the GI system, and by the kidneys. Your body does not come out of neutral. You cannot drink water and make your body alkalinic. That is a lack of understanding on some people. And on others, it's just a straight up lie because they know better, but they're lying. So what happens when we eat some food and then we have this digestive acid? That is 1, but the body, as I said, lives here in the 7.4 range in neutral, right? You see right here, it says stomach tablets. That's like antacids, right? And people pop antacids because the stomach is burning, whatever case may be. That sometimes can settle a stomach when it's acidic. But the reason why people are having those problems is because something is wrong. I want to have a conversation on a normal stomach, not one that's bad. So in the human body, we have a pancreas, which we make bicarbonate, right? We make a fluid that helps balance this acidic nature that I'm talking about. And it's up in the area of 10 and 11. So when you eat food, no matter what the food is, you put that food in an acidic environment, a very high acidic environment to get broken down. And then when you finish digesting and it starts to move out into the intestines, your pancreas makes a fluid that's over here. So it takes that acidic nature and starts to bring it back towards neutral where we live. I pray that this is making sense, because this is where we need to live. This is where the body heals the best. This is where the body functions at its utmost, not in alkaline state, but in a neutral state. And so if you eat correctly, and if you drink your water and hydrate prior to your meals, and then you let the body work on that food so you can get everything out of it and chew it correctly, like the Honorable Elijah Muhammad just finished talking to us, we're talking about taking your health and your total being to another level of functionality. Some of us, I watch people when I'm in public and sometimes at people's homes, people put a big old thing of food in their mouth. And it looked like people are opening up like a python as they're swallowing their food. That's going to take longer to digest. That's adding difficulty to your digestive system when you eat like that. And so let's take our time. When we sit down at the dinner table, we should be sitting down thinking, wow, these navy beans are going to give me some good iron and some zinc, help boost my immune system, make my blood. It's got antioxidants in it that are going to help detoxify me, boost my whole system. I'm going to chew this broccoli and get some of my good B vitamins. I'm going to drink a milk smoothie with some berries in it prior to I eat. I just said don't drink with or after your meal, right? And I'm going to get some good amino acids and some good phytonutrients that are going to help my body heal. See, if you're sitting down, taking your time, chewing your food, having good conversation, but thinking about what's going into you and what it's going to do for you, your body is on a whole different level of being able to take that food and do with it what you dictated to do with it. Right? I just finished talking earlier about the stem cell that has to be directed. A stem cell can't do what it wants to do in the body, nor can food. Food does what we tell it to do. Food does what it's absorbed and sent to do. So let's have some focus on what we're eating, why we're eating, and then let's talk about to ourselves while we're eating or at the dinner table with the family on what this food is going to do wonderfully for this beautiful body. And if we're doing it in Allah's way, we're doing it at the optimum. I pray that makes sense. So I think I'm finished, brothers and sisters. That was my presentation for today. I pray that you enjoyed it. I pray that I didn't take too long. I really wanted to give kind of a general, thorough overview of what is How to Eat to Live. For those who believe in the book, let's get busy. For those who are hearing this for the first time and don't know anything about it, I would suggest you do some research and look at some of the things that I said about renewing all your blood cells on a 3-day fast. You can look up Methuselah Mouse. You can look up calorie restriction. You can look up intermittent fasting. All of these different words bear witness to what the Honorable Elijah Muhammad has been teaching for 80 plus years now. So let's just consider this as I close. And I'm speaking directly now to brothers and sisters of the Nation of Islam. What kind of attraction would we have if people would say things like, man, them people over there at that Maz 93 in Macon, they got diabetes and they joined the Maz. They don't have diabetes anymore after they're for a little while. I never heard of a Muslim following How to Eat to Live with high blood pressure. And then even on another level, right? What if the only statements that doctors can make in hospitals was, yeah, I've had some of them Muhammads come in here during this pandemic with that coronavirus, but it's been them MO Muhammads. It ain't been them MU Muhammads. Those ones that follow How to Eat to Live, they don't catch the virus. Because that's what I believe this book has the capability of doing. It's giving us the type of immune system. I'm talking about putting in the work. I'm not talking about praying and not working. I'm talking about doing the work of that book. It is a work, because in a world like we live in, it's not easy to practice how to eat to live. But that's what we have to do. We have to work on our faith, right? Faith without works is dead. So if we worked on that, and that's the type of statement what people would make about the Nation of Islam, I think that would be pretty attractive when it comes to health. So I will conclude there. I appreciate your attention. I appreciate the opportunity Brother Wayne produced for me. Thank you, my brother. Without anything further from me, assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum salam, sir.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Are you opening up for question, brother?
Yes, sir. I'm about to check and see if there's any, but if anybody here has any, they can put them in the chat.
Okay. I work this chat thing here.
I don't see any in this over here. I don't know what's going on over here. Let me see. If you find any, or are there any for me, Brother Wayne, let me know. I'm gonna kind of read through what's over here on Facebook, okay?
Yes, sir.
Brother James William, wa alaikum salam, Ramadan Kareem, my brother. Brother
Are you
Horn,
allowing those that are on the Zoom can just ask, or do they need to type it in the chat?
either way, we can do it either way. I'm cool with either way.
Okay, well, I have a question, if you
Yes,
don't
sir.
mind. I've heard brothers and sisters talk about tea versus coffee. I don't recall reading anything about drinking tea during the fast, but I heard about drinking coffee and water. What are your takes?
Yes, sir. So let me first say that the Honorable Elijah Muhammad says that the 8 glass a day water thing is relative to 3 meals a day. I'll have to find that. I'm hearing an echo. Hold on a second. Okay, can you hear me okay, Brother Wayne?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So the Honorable Elijah Muhammad mentions that the 8 glasses a day of water was based on 3 meals a day. And he suggested that when we go to 1 meal a day, that we would not need that much water in between meals. I honestly don't know how to answer that as far as how much we should drink. I have been a water drinker all of my life. And based on that, I don't know the specifics, but the Honorable Elijah Muhammad does say that we can drink coffee with our fasts. Of course, he says don't overdo the cream and the sugar, right? And then the
Yes,
minister spoke in a lecture. I have to try to get the information on which lecture it was, but he suggested that drinking tea during the fast was okay as well. And I think he gave the same restrictions. Just don't overdo the sweeteners and whatever you're adding to it. So that's my understanding, brother, from the two of them, that we are able to do tea and coffee during our fasts, but we definitely don't want to overdo sweeteners, because that aspect that I talked about earlier about the benefits of fasting, adding a lot of sugar will thwart that problem. Your body will stop those processes that we were looking at going and increasing as the time goes on. So that 200% of that autophagy and the increase in ketones and all of that healing that the body's doing, you put too much sugar in when you're drinking those type of beverages, it can stop that process. Thank you, sir.
thank you,
Good
sir.
question.
Thank you.
Okay. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam.
This is Kimberly from Muhammad Muslim 93. I wanted to ask you, you mentioned hydration and water. I know you
Yes,
said
ma'am.
you didn't want to go fully into it, but could you
Yes,
give the
ma'am.
difference between hydration and water? And Minister Farrakhan's statement about the tea is in Study Guide 13, The Price of Redemption. The
Praise
quote,
be to
which
Allah.
he's saying coffee tea is in that reference.
Thank you, my sister. I appreciate it.
You're welcome,
So,
sir.
do you know if that's the only place he said it, or do you know if he said it in a lecture as well?
I know that came out of a lecture, but I did not. It is in a lecture, but I don't know which lecture it comes out of, but I know he quoted it. It's in Study Guide number 13, The Price of Redemption. If you look under fasting, the part on fasting.
Thank you, my sister.
You're welcome,
I
sir.
appreciate that. There you
You're
go.
welcome.
I'm learning too.
Yeah, we learned.
Okay. Yes, ma'am. Okay, so the difference between drinking water, I'm sure we all know what drinking water is, just grabbing your water from whatever your source is and drinking it. But the definition of hydration is water with other substances. And so a hydration is when you have more nutrients that come from that periodic table that help nourish the body. the Honorable Elijah Muhammad mentions in How to Eat to Live that our bodies are made up of all the stone and everything of the earth. So all of these different nutrients, I should say elements that are on a periodic table are necessary in the body, some to more degree than others. And so I hydrate by putting sea salt in my water, drinking that. Like, for instance, during Ramadan, when I wake up in the morning before my morning prayer, I do some sea salt in my water, and then I follow up the same amount of water without salt before the day, and that keeps the water on your body. It goes more into the cells and stays on your body for longer periods of time. And then in the evening time, when I break my fast, I do the same thing again, and then maybe break fast with a little bit of fruit or something quick before ablution and saying prayer. Then my wife and I will come back and eat our evening meal. So that's the difference between water and hydration. And if anybody wants to know specifically how much salt for you, you would have to reach out to me, because that's different amounts for different size of people. I'm about 6'1", 180 pounds. I do a teaspoon, but a smaller person doesn't need that much salt. Did I answer your question, sister?
Yes, you absolutely did, because I want to know, because from a woman's perspective, and our hormones, when we transitioning into certain areas of wisdom, or just transitioning period as a woman, it's a little different than with a man. So I will have to talk to you about that as well. Okay.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. I appreciate that, Dr.
No problem, sister. Thank you for a wonderful question. I'm about to go back and check Facebook if there's no questions here, and see if there are any.
While you're checking that, can you mention about the level of pasta? Because I've seen a lot of us eat pasta a lot. And can you address that?
Well, I think the best way to address that would be to look at what the Honorable Elijah Muhammad says about it. Because he mentions that it's definitely not good for us to eat that a lot. And he, of course, said that if you're overweight, that you shouldn't eat it at all. So let me find that, my brother, because I think that's an excellent question. We, as I said earlier, we can't mix up other teaching with what the Honorable Elijah Muhammad says. So if people are mixing this up with other stuff that they find from other teachings, or things that they think are healthy, it should be evaluated. I'm not saying that you would be wrong if you do a correct evaluation, but some of the things that he told us about, we definitely shouldn't do. I'm going to have to find it, my brother, and get back to you, okay? I'm going to find it before we get off the show, but I don't want to spend too much time with nothing happening. But
Yes,
I'll come back to that in just a second.
Yes, sir. Pasta, because I've seen.
So here's a question. I'm sorry, go ahead, Sister Kimberly.
Oh, I'm sorry, sir. It's on page 31, sir, of How to Eat to Live, book 1.
31.
The pasta, yes, sir. The pasta, yes, sir.
There it is. So I'm gonna read the whole paragraph, because I think Brother Wayne is trying to make a very important point. Sugar diabetes can be controlled and cured if you only eat correctly. Stay off sugar and starchy foods and leave those old white potatoes alone. Do not eat spaghetti and macaroni at every meal. If you are overweight, do not eat it at any meal. And if you want to live a long time, do not eat it at any meal. Foods such as spaghetti and macaroni are processed, not cooked thoroughly, and are hard to digest. So, I mean, there's the answer. But what I will say is that there are a lot of people who are trying to do spaghetti and things of that nature to try to have some variety in what they're eating. And as I would say, that feminine spirit of having a little more diversity right? Because Brother Wayne, me and you would be like, okay, let's sit down and eat this bowl of bean soup and this wheat bread and whatever else we got. That's what we go eat every day. Sisters want to kind of move it and change it up a little bit. So if you are doing like spinach pasta or wheat pasta or quinoa pasta, I definitely believe that that is better. But I would not be able to tell you whether the Honorable Elijah Muhammad is or is not including those in that. I just think that what he says is pretty straightforward. So even if we're doing the more healthy pastas, it should not be something that we're doing very frequently. Would be Dr. Achilles' understanding of what the Honorable Elijah Muhammad said. Did I answer your question, my brother?
Yes, sir. We do have 2 questions in the chat. If you want me to read them, or do you see them?
Yes, sir. I see him.
Okay.
Is pasta still bad if made out of the navy bean? It would depend, Sister Patricia, on how it's made. Because what I'm noticing is that a lot of people are taking the navy bean and making products with them, but there is a way to do that, which the MGT were taught in the during the time when the Honorable Elijah Muhammad was here. My understanding is that the way they were taught is that you cook the navy bean first. You don't grind the navy bean down when it has not been cooked, because there are many things in the navy bean that has to be balanced for the body in the cooking process. And we're mostly talking about the anti-nutrients, phytic acid and oxalic acid, which are in the navy bean to protect it when it's just a bean by itself. When we soak the bean and then cook the bean, we relieve the bean of those acids that are responsible for keeping us from absorbing the nutrients out of the navy bean. So if you are cooking your navy beans and then dehydrating them and then making whatever you're making, my understanding is that's good. But if you're doing it another way, then no, that pasta would probably not be good at all. So that's my answer there, my sister. Thank you. Brother Frank says coconut water during fasting in Ramadan. Well, let me read you, Brother Frank, what my philosophy is on coconut. I think it's on 65. So here is what the Honorable Elijah Muhammad says, 4th paragraph on page 65, book 1. Eat the white part of cabbage and cauliflower. Stay off those peanuts, coconuts, and nuts, period. So do I know what he meant by that? No. But what I take from that is I don't touch coconut. So when it comes to coconut water, coconut oil, I don't do any of that things. I was part of a group of doctors a few years ago that did our research about that, and we concluded that it may be acceptable for people to use it on their skin for certain conditions if you have skin problems that need to be moisturized or need some type of lubrication. But even I don't suggest that, because there are too many other possibilities that you could use to do the same thing with something that the Honorable Elijah Muhammad did say. And I use this example. When I was coming up, my mother and father had a policy on their room. And I remember on many of occasions hearing this, either at me or one of my brothers: do not go in our room, period. So there was no reason that we could come up in order to go into my parents' room. Unless we went and asked them, we had to stay out their room. So when he says period, that's the way I take it. I'm not trying to tell you what he meant. I can't say what the Honorable Elijah Muhammad meant in everything in that book. I'm just telling you how Brother Dr. Akili accepts that and how he lives with it. Okay. So I pray I answered that question. All right. I think this is a pretty good question we got over here on Facebook real quick. And brothers and sisters, we are going to end on time. So if there are questions that I don't get to before we get off of here, I will go and answer them for you. Okay. Jenna X Jackson says, how does exercise work in tandem with how to eat to live? Does it aid in digestion or regeneration? And or is there more about muscle tone and cardiovascular strength? My sister Jenna, wonderful question, my sister. I will answer your question like this. Everything that I said today about the optimal way that the body can heal, I was including exercise and activity, because what I have studied and also seen is that a sedentary person does not have good health. even if you're eating good foods, even if you're doing a lot of the good things, by being sedentary, that doesn't activate the body like exercise does, as your questions are asking. So when you say, how does exercise work in tandem with How to Eat to Live? It takes it to its supreme place. And when I say activity and exercise, I'm talking about specifically having an exercise program. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad said the best exercise was walking. He didn't say that in How to Eat to Live, but I read that somewhere else. And so I would suggest that you not walk on concrete. I would suggest that you not walk on a treadmill. And I would suggest that you not walk on asphalt. Those surfaces are too hard for the body. But if you have a track or grass or gravel track at a park or somewhere near your house, it would be worth the effort to go and do it on those things that are softer for your body and will wear and tear your joints less. And then you are outside in the environment that Allah made for us with the real aromatherapy. I'm not knocking aromatherapy that people do in their homes, but I'm lifting the aromatherapy of the plant, the grass, the trees that are in the environment where we go outside and walk. So that is, in my personal viewpoint, which takes How to Eat to Live to the supreme place. And then you said, does it aid in digestion or regeneration? Yes, activity improves digestion. I don't know if any of you have had a surgery or you have been in the hospital, one of your family members or friends have had a surgery, but we don't decide to allow people to leave a hospital and go home after surgery until they're walking and they pass gas. When you start walking, it starts activating the digestive system, and that's what's happened. And that's why we let people go home. Why? Because if you don't pass gas and you go home and you eat and your system is not working correctly, you could wind up with impaction and other type of problems. So yes, absolutely. It aids in digestion. Regeneration, yes. The activity of the body improves and increases the metabolism. And so when you go into your fast, your body is already working upbeat. And so you get into all of those different sections that I was talking about, the autophagy, the decrease in insulin use, and the decrease in the body's need for sugar. And now you start making ketones. All of those things happen quicker in a very active person than it will in a sedentary person. And so it definitely improves everything that's a benefit of fasting, including regeneration. And in your last question about muscle tone and cardiovascular strength, yes, because as you do all the things that we just finished talking about, that's going to increase your muscle tone, improve your cardiovascular strength, which all in tune make this system, right? When we talk about unity and doing things together, the human body is the perfect example of that. When you are taking care of your body at the best capability that you have, and Brother Dr. Keeley's personal viewpoint, assessment, and evaluation of that statement is that is coming from the practice and the diligent practice of How to Eat to Live. Your body is working at its best capability, and there is nothing else that I think has the ability to give you superior health. So Sister Jenna, wonderful questions. Thank you. Sister Jacqueline asks, why do people sometimes feel nausea when they're fasting? Most of the time it's because of toxin removal. When we fast, that is a great way that we release toxins from the body. And sometimes they will make you nauseated and sometimes cause a headache because they inflame the sinuses as they are being released from the body. Good question. Any other questions over there, brother Wayne?
Yes, sir. There was another brother Wayne has put one in the chat.
Okay.
Romaine lettuce acceptable to consume as a leafy vegetable?
Yes, sir. Brother Wayne, that is something that I was sharing earlier about the letter that the Honorable Elijah Muhammad wrote, and it had some foods on it. My wife shared it with me. It was a letter that they were studying in MGT class, but the Honorable Elijah Muhammad did say, I believe, I'm going to have to check. I believe it was romaine lettuce that he said we could eat. And I think there were some other lettuces that he said weren't as good. But I believe romaine lettuce is the one that's acceptable for us to eat. But we have to, of course, put that in context, because the Honorable Elijah Muhammad said that we should not be making meals of salad. So, if you believe in the teachings of How to Eat to Live and Honorable Elijah Muhammad in this book, you shouldn't be going and having a big salad as your dinner. That's not what he said to do. He said, eat a salad along with cooked meals. And so I think we can eat romaine lettuce, but let's just make sure we're keeping it in that vein. Okay. Did I answer your question, Brother Wayne?
Brother Wayne, you can come off mute.
Yes, sir, you did. Yes, sir, you did answer my question, sir. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, brother. Well, I don't see any more questions, my brother. Oh, Maxine Blanche, please post the name of the site again. Sister, please tell me what you mean, because I talked about a lot. I don't remember exactly what site I was talking about. Okay, here's one. Felonice Mitchell says, is there a recommended facial and body soap to be used with the coconut included in it? Not for me, my sister. I don't, I pray that I answered that question about coconut after you asked this question, but no, I don't suggest coconut at all. So I'm not telling you not to use it on your skin, but I don't have a recommendation.
I think Sister Patricia asked you to mention something on juicing.
Oh, okay. Yes. Let me let me just go back if you were on the program when I talked about the stomach and the stomach acid and the chewing of our food, right? The Honorable Elijah Muhammad talks about that was book 2 about the mastication of the food. Let me bring that back up real quick, because I think it's going to be important in what you are asking.
I don't know if that's juicing in replace of a meal or
Right.
just having the juice.
Yes,
I don't
sir.
know.
So I'm gonna cover them from both perspectives.
Okay.
So the statement, my sister, on book 2, page 185 is, if we expect to live from what we eat, we must be sure that that what we eat is masticated so perfectly well until the stomach juices, which have no teeth, with its hot acid can digest the food without too much work. Okay. So there is a process that is occurring when we chew, right? We have a parotid gland, we have submandibular glands, and we have submaxillary glands. All of these are what produce our saliva. And so a lot of us believe that the digestion process starts with when you put something in your mouth, and it actually starts when you smell, because the saliva that's in those glands is produced based on the smell of the food. So if your nose smells, and you know what, while I'm talking about this, I want to bring up a picture so you all can see the specifics of what I'm talking about, because to understand the depth of knowledge that the Honorable Elijah Muhammad gave us in these books, I think is a beautiful thing. So let me just bring up a picture quickly. Okay, I pray that you all can see it. Okay, is it up, Brother Wayne? Okay.
Yes, sir, it's up.
Okay, thank you, bro. So when we smell, these nerves that are in the nose are responsible for actually detecting what it is that we're about to bring in the body. When we smell things, we're actually smelling particles. So like if you smell some good bean soup, you're actually smelling particles of those beans that are basically going up into the air. You're smelling it, right? Any other food. And that's also true for bad things. So if you smell a dead animal or somebody's foul odor, you're smelling particles of that too. But that's what dictates what you are making in your parotid, submandibular, or submaxillary glands that produce our saliva. So when you put something in your mouth, your body through the nose has already detected what it was, and the body's saying, okay, there's some protein in that, there's some sugar in that, or fat, or a combination of all. And now the parotid glands are starting to work on that. So when the Honorable Elijah Muhammad tells us to masticate our food perfectly so that it eases down your throat, he is telling us that the food has been processed, because he said that stomach acid is aiding in the digestion of that food. That's what prepares the food to be digested in the stomach. So if we abort that process and put something in a blender or put something in your magic bullet or whatever you're doing to make juice, you have just now aborted a process that processes the food properly for the body. And so now you're drinking that juice, the body's confused. Where did all this come from? It's not mixed with any saliva. It's too much. Every good food does have some toxin in it. So when you juice food, you're also adding a lot of toxins to the body. Why? Because if you drink a glass of juice, like some of these people on social media and some of these health sites are talking about, 32 ounces, 60 some ounces of green drink and all this, imagine how much it took to make that, right? I grew up drinking a lot of juice. And I remember when my mother said to us as young boys, hey, y'all got a fruit tree in the backyard. I'm not going to buy orange juice at the store anymore. You make your own juice. And so we would go out there and we would pick oranges, pick 4 or 5 oranges, put it in that juice and get this much juice. We're like, hey, where's my juice? So it takes a lot of pieces of fruit or a lot of pieces of food in order to make how much juice we're drinking sometimes. Overwhelms the body, too much nutrition, hasn't been processed correctly, and it has not deleted some of those toxins that are deleted in the process of chewing, digestion, and preparation. Okay, so I hope I answered it from that perspective. Juicing is not good. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad mentions that. I'm gonna have to look up the page before we get off of here. Second thing is, if a person is severely malnutritious, I do sometimes put people on juice because they just can't handle getting the nutrition from the food because their digestive system is so weak. So I have to balance that. Now, it's not large amounts because of what I just said by increasing more toxins, but I do use juice if a person is in a very bad state of health and we're trying to improve it that way before we get their GI system to a place where it can get back to digesting well. So I pray that answers your question, sister. Oh, okay. So Sister Kimberly said, okay, my wife is standing right here. Sister, Sister, the letter that the Honorable Elijah Muhammad wrote, what letters did he say?
To eat?
Yes.
He mentioned not eating iceberg nor romaine, but butter leaf.
Butter leaf. Okay. So Sister Kimberly is saying that the letter that the Honorable Elijah Muhammad said, do not eat romaine lettuce. Oh, she said you don't have to know. I'm sorry. I already did it. Okay, so that's it. No, do not eat romaine and iceberg, you said, but we can eat butter leaf. So it's butter leaf that was in that. That's why I said earlier I had to check it because I wasn't exactly sure. But thank you, Sister Kimberly, for having me out.
Nor chicory. Because a
Nor
lot
chicory.
of people use that, yes.
Okay, so no chicory, no romaine, and no iceberg, but definitely butter leaf. All right, brothers and sisters. So there's the answer to that one. All right. So I didn't see any more questions in Zoom, and I don't see any more questions on Facebook. So I guess we're done, my brother. You have anything to say before we close out, my brother?
I'd like to give our student minister opportunity to speak if he has anything.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Assalamu alaikum.
Walaikum salam, sir.
Akili. All I can say, brother, is a wonderful job, brother.
Praise be to Allah.
Wonderful job. I mean, you put the science with the knowledge, and I think you made this so plain as the messenger say a fool can understand this. So we thank Allah for you, brother, and most definitely we're glad to have you in the Macon, Georgia area. You and your wife. So
Yes, sir.
you're a wealth of wisdom, and we thank Allah for you. Wonderful job.
Well, praise be to Allah, brother. I got to give all the credit to the Honorable Elijah Muhammad and, of course, Master Farad Muhammad, the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, because without them, I probably would be sitting here trying to talk y'all into taking a vaccine.
Yes, sir. Praise
And
be to Allah.
And my advice today is the exact opposite. The vaccine, as we talked about earlier, is definitely not any good for you brothers and sisters. And it's absolutely relative, because everything that I just finished talking about, if you take your time, go through it and buy the books and start trying to apply the books, you will have an improvement of your health, and you will have an improvement of your confidence in your health. And that's what it takes in this day and time that we're living in, is to have confidence and not be, as Don Elijah mentioned, you start getting information from so many different places, you get confused. And I have been studying these teachings and trying to apply them for the last 18 years. And so 26 years of practicing medicine and 18 years of trying to learn how to be a steward of how to eat to live, I think has truly given me confidence in a way that nothing else has ever done. Not the information that I read in those big fat books with all those big words, not from the people that were my mentors in medicine. And so I'm saying that because if you're listening to a lot of these people online in these Zoom meetings and these other meetings where all these so-called experts are talking about all this stuff, just look for their tree, right? And I'm talking about the people who they have influence over, or the people that they have helped. And that's where you can start to evaluate the information that you're getting and where it needs to rest within your application. Okay. So if that's it, we're going to pray and we're going to leave. Anything else before we pray and leave? Okay, well, that's it. Then we'll pray. And I pray that everybody that is practicing Ramadan, whether this is your first time or your 1,000th, I pray that your Ramadan is beautiful. So Ramadan Mubarak. Okay, prayer. In the name of Allah, the Beneficent, the Most Merciful, all praise is due to Allah, the Lord of the worlds. We seek refuge in Allah from the accursed Satan. O Allah, we beseech thy help and ask thy mercy, for we believe in you and trust in you for all that we need. We are helpers in your cause with your apostles, so please grant us success. We seek thy refuge from anxiety and grief. We seek thy refuge from lack of strength and laziness. We seek thy refuge from niggardliness and cowardice. We seek thy refuge from the overpowerment of debt and the oppression of men. O Allah, suffice us to what is lawful. Help keep us away from that which is prohibited, and with thy grace make us free of want from what is besides thee. We humbly submit this prayer in the name of our exalted Christ and Mahdi, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, keeping in our prayers our divine reminder of Messiah, the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. Ameen. Assalamu alaikum, brothers and sisters. Have a wonderful rest of your evening and a wonderful break of your fast.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Dr. King. Thank you so much, sir.